In a speech, China's top diplomat tells the new administration how to behave when it comes to China issues.
New comments from China's top diplomat encouraged the White House to play by Beijing's rules. In the half-hour speech, diplomat Yang Jiechi laid out what he called a red line that the U.S. shouldn't cross, namely to stop interfering in what China considers its internal affairs, including issues surrounding Taiwan, Hong Kong, Tibet, and the Xinjiang region. He warned that trespassing across this line would harm U.S. interests. Before Biden took office, former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo designated Beijing's persecution of the Uyghur minority group in Xinjiang as genocide. The U.S. also imposed sanctions against Communist Party officials responsible for human rights violations in Hong Kong and Tibet. In his speech, Yang told the Biden administration to follow the One China policy with regards to Taiwan. During Trump's administration, top officials repeatedly differentiated between Taiwan and mainland China. In one interview, Pompeo said, quote, "Taiwan has not been a part of China." Yang also said the U.S. should cooperate with China on drug control. According to a 2018 report by the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, China is the largest source of illicit fentanyl and fentanyl-like substances in the United States. In 2020, the U.S. sanctioned several Chinese nationals and a company for fentanyl trafficking. Yang's speech was part of a virtual event. It was hosted by the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, a New York-based nonprofit.
Some are voicing concerns that Burma, or Myanmar, could grow closer to the Chinese regime. The comments follow the country's recent military takeover.
The U.S. has declared the military takeover in Burma as a coup. The label triggered restrictions on U.S. aid that can be sent to the country. Burma's de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi is under house arrest. Now all eyes are on the response from the Chinese regime, which has given no meaningful comments so far.
We have noticed what happened in Myanmar, and we are learning more about the situation.
Some worry the military takeover may increase China's influence in the region.
Myanmar could grow further from politically free democratic nations and join the League of China, which is under Communist Party dictatorship.
The Southeast Asian country was under socialist rule for decades until 2011, imposed by a military-run government. But even after a civilian government took over, the military remained powerful in domestic affairs. The conflict between the military and Suu Kyi may have put China in an awkward position. A Chinese military source told the South China Morning Post that's because both have a cordial relationship with China. A reporter from the Myanmar Times said the coup may not necessarily please Beijing. He told Taiwan's Central News Agency that Beijing has been supplying weapons to anti-government armed forces in Burma, and that Burma's military sees the Chinese regime as disrupting peace in the country. Back in 2011, Burma's military-backed government also suspended construction on a dam China had promised to invest in. The move angered Beijing. That's because the dam would give China control over water flow of Burma's main river. It prompted national security concerns among Burma's leaders. But at the same time, since taking power, the country's democratically elected leader Suu Kyi has dropped her critical tone towards China. She has long promoted Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, a program where China lends money to developing countries to build infrastructure while increasing its political sway. She also praised Beijing early last year for defending justice and fairness, adding that the two countries should jointly build the Burma-China common destiny. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Multiple sources are accusing the Biden administration's White House press secretary of screening reporter questions before press briefings. We look at that and two other controversies.
A number of White House reporters are claiming the White House communications team is asking them to submit questions in advance. According to a report by the Daily Beast, some reporters flagged the issue to the White House Correspondents Association last week. Association leaders apparently told reporters to push back against these requests. One White House correspondent says, quote, "The press can't really do its job in the briefing room if the White House is picking and choosing the questions they want." A deputy White House press secretary under Obama, on the other hand, believes this is standard practice. He says, quote, "This is textbook communication work. The briefing becomes meaningless if the press secretary has to repeatedly punt questions, instead of coming equipped to discuss what journalists are reporting on."
Thanks for your patience. Lots to say about COVID, no doubt about it. Let's see. Let me talk to our team about it.
The press secretary is also under scrutiny for saying she sometimes treats reporters as if she's working in an insane asylum. The following is an interview with NPR.
I have a little secret thing I do, maybe not secret because I'm telling all of you, but when reporters are getting really loud or they're starting to ask crazy questions, I just slow down my pace and I talk very quietly and I treat them like I'm an orderly sometimes in an insane asylum.
And another controversy, YouTube is apparently deleting dislikes from White House videos since President Biden settled in. Many netizens have been noticing that thousands of dislikes were removed from the White House channel. A netizen that tracked White House YouTube videos for 24 hours showed her findings. For most videos, the number of dislikes dropped sharply after the first 4 hours, even though the number of views and likes rose steadily. YouTube says this is part of its regular efforts to remove what it calls inauthentic engagement. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
2 FBI agents have been shot and 3 wounded while carrying out a search warrant for a child exploitation case in Florida. The first time an agent has been shot in over a decade. NTD's Grace Coulter speaks to a former FBI agent to get his take on the shooting.
According to the FBI Wall of Horror, the shooting of the 2 FBI agents in Sunrise, Florida Tuesday morning is the deadliest violent incident for the Bureau since 1986. The standoff between a subject and the FBI agents ended with 2 agents killed and 3 wounded. FBI Miami Special Agent Michael D. Leverlock said 2 agents were sent to the hospital and are in stable condition. He said the suspect also died during the standoff in which he barricaded himself inside a house. The FBI agents were carrying out a federal search warrant for a child exploitation case. This is the first time an FBI agent has been shot and killed since 2008. Mark Ruskin, a 27-year veteran, says this will go down as one of the worst days in the history of the Bureau.
What happened today in Florida in Sunrise clearly is going to be probably the worst day in the history of the FBI. There hasn't been a shootout like this since the Miami shootout in the mid-1980s. It's a nightmare scenario, and I think FBI agents throughout the country and the world are mourning right now and in shock.
Ruskin survived a shooting incident on the job himself. He says it's not like the movies. No matter how much you train, rehearse, and anticipate different scenarios, there's always going to be variables beyond your control, and those variables can be fatal. Ruskin says he has no doubt the Florida suspect was better armed and better trained than the FBI had anticipated. The shooting happened around 6 a.m. in a middle-class neighborhood of single-family homes, duplexes, and apartment buildings in the Fort Lauderdale suburb. After the shooting, law enforcement agencies swarmed the neighborhood. Another large group of officers gathered outside the hospital where the victims were taken. Ruskin says though the FBI has become politicized in recent years due to the actions of individuals in upper management, this is a reminder that law enforcement agencies are a necessary part of society and take great risks to keep Americans safe. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Twitter has shut down another account. This time, it's the official account for pillow and bedding company MyPillow. NTD's Christina Kim tells us why this happened.
Twitter says it permanently suspended the official account for MyPillow because it violated policy against ban evasion. The company's CEO Mike Lindell used the MyPillow account to circumvent his own ban from Twitter. Lindell is a friend and outspoken supporter of former President Trump. He was banned from Twitter a week ago over his repeated claims that the presidential election was rigged. The Minnesota businessman posted on the company Twitter account, "Thank you to everyone who has supported MyPillow during this time. Jack Dorsey is trying to cancel me out." Another post on the account accuses Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey of being tied to election fraud. Following Lindell's personal Twitter ban, companies including Bed Bath & Beyond and Kohl's stopped selling MyPillow products. The retailers claim it was a performance-driven decision, but Lindell maintains that they were pressured into dropping him because he spoke out against alleged election fraud. But some companies like Costco say they will continue to carry MyPillow products. Lindell told USA Today that he can't believe they're doing this to MyPillow and said, quote, "They're out to destroy me." Christina Kim, NTD News.
A new study shows that 2 shots of the virus vaccine may elicit bigger side effects for people who've already been infected by the virus. NTD's Miguel Moreno has the details on when one may be enough and updates on the pandemic.
As you know, all available COVID vaccines in the U.S. require 2 doses, but is one enough? A new study says yes, for some. These researchers say people who were once infected with the CCP virus suffered more side effects than never infected participants. They say this is because the infected already have antibodies, which help the vaccine do its job more effectively. The paper hasn't been peer-reviewed yet, but researchers say their findings could change the number of shots people get in the future. But even getting the vaccine hasn't been easy this week in the Northeast. Some states were battered by a nor'easter so much that officials put their vaccination sites on hold in states like New Jersey and New York. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo suspended sites and appointments across the state Monday and Tuesday.
Frankly, we didn't want a lot of people on the roads this morning. We were still clearing roads this morning. And the appointments will be honored. That will be done. Don't worry about losing your appointment.
New York is expected to get its hands on more vaccines. That's because President Biden has increased the number of vaccines he'll send states across the country. The amount of doses being sent to different states will go up by 5% for a total of 10.5 million doses per week. That's a lot of vaccine. Biden's team also says they'll send vaccines to about 6,500 pharmacies nationwide on the 11th of this month to start. Now, as you can imagine, someone must be making money from this. At least one of those 2 vaccine makers is projecting it will make roughly $15 billion in revenue in 2021. This is Pfizer, one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, and they're a global supplier. So let's take a step away from the pharmaceutical measures. We went over double masking last week and how it wasn't recommended by the CDC, even though Dr. Anthony Fauci said it's likely to be more effective than just wearing one mask. Disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci tells the Washington Post that the CDC may recommend double masking.
That's possible, David. In fact, just discussions with my CDC colleagues yesterday, we were talking about the CDC is looking at doing a study of seeing whether or not 2 masks might be better than one. It makes common sense that you would think.
Fauci says the CDC only makes science-based recommendations, which is why they haven't recommended double masking. But some media have been critical of him. Some people appear to have lost confidence in the doctor because he's flip-flopped on some issues, masks being one of them. But he's defended himself, saying the discussion around the virus is changing with new developments, but not the goalpost. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.